got a copy of the program for myself. Thank you. One for the cantor, too.
Good afternoon. As we gather in this space of sadness and memory, I want to just offer a psalm. Psalm 121, Song of Ascending, and those who raise each other up. Shir LaMa'alot, Esa Enai Ele Harim, Me'ayin Yavo Ezri, Ezri Me'im Adonai, Ose Shamayim Va'aretz, Haritein Lamot Raglecha, Al Yanum Shomrecha, Ine Lo Yanum, Velo Ishal Shomer Israel, Adonai Shomrecha, Adonai Tzilcha, Al Yad Yeminecha, Yomam HaShemesh Lo Yakeka, Ve'areach Balayla, Adonai Yishmorcha Mikora, Yishmor et nafshecha, Adonai Yishmor tzeitcha uvoecha, me'ata ve'ad olam, me'ata ve'ad olam.
Esa enai el harim me'ayin yavo ezri. I lift my eyes to the mountains. Where will my help come? Those are the words the cantor just sang. In times of trouble, as a community, we look for sources of strength and help, like the speaker in Psalm 121 who finds comfort in the view of the mountains in front of them. Indeed, there are some people in our lives who are like those mountains, seemingly eternal, unshakable, strong. Saul was one of those mountains, a man of strength and equanimity, a devoted husband, a devoted father, grandfather, friend. It seems unthinkable that our mountains may be gone, because mountains are supposed to last forever. So when we lift our eyes to those mountains, one of them is missing. And as the psalmists say, we ask, Me'ayin yavo ezri, from where will our help come? The psalmists answer, Ezri me'im Adonai, our help may come from God, from the maker of heaven and the maker of heaven and earth. But this morning we'll add to the psalmist's words, our help comes from the embrace of loved ones and community. And so together we gather around Saul's family, offering them our strength and comfort as we say goodbye to Saul and honor his life today. Read with me the words of immortality on the front of the program. Do not stand by my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am a diamond glint on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. When you awaken in the morning hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circling flight. I am the soft star shine at night. Do not stand by my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. We hear the Hebrew rendition of Psalm 23, and then we'll read together it in English.
Mizmor David, Adonai roi lo echsar, Adonai bino te sheyarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yinach aleini. Nafshi yishovev, Yancheni v'magle tzedek, Yancheni v'magle tzedek, leman shemo. Gam ki elech b'geit salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged zorerai dishanta vashemen roshi kosi revaya ach tov chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, kol yemei chayai, v'shavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim. Adonai roi lo echsar, Adonai roi lo echsar.
Together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant, a time to harvest. A time to tear down, a time to build up. A time to weep, a time to laugh. A time to grieve, a time to dance. A time to embrace, a time to stand alone. A time to seek, a time to lose. A time to hold on and a time to let go. A time to rend, a time to mend. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. It is our time to speak. And even though it is strange for us to be here today, to send Saul off to his final resting place, even though we knew that the end was near, our hearts are certainly heavy with loss. Certainly the last year was tough. health concerns, and hospice. But the last years do not define 99 years of life. Saul mattered to us, mattered to his family and the people who loved him. We take comfort in knowing that in Jewish tradition we do not bury a person, we simply bury the body. Because Judaism does teach of eternal soul, a spark that will not be extinguished. And Saul is that spark. The psalmist wondering what was the measure of someone who lived a life well. They ask, who should dwell upon your holy mountain? And the answer is, it is the person who walks upright and does righteously, who speaks the truth in his heart, who has no slander upon his tongue, who does no evil to another or cause harm to his neighbors. Those who honors his oath that they keep like the oath that he does. These are the ones who should stand upon God's holy mountain. And no doubt Saul is standing on that mountain now. Saul's children and grandchild will talk more about his life in a moment, the ins and outs of a life filled with blessings as well as burdens. Born in May of 1925 in Milwaukee and raised in Wausau, to some degree, Saul and his siblings epitomize the first-generation Jewish American immigrant story. Abe, Saul's dad, owned and operated a fruit and vegetable market, and the family was raised on the ideals of hard work and camaraderie. The family came together to survive the Depression, and Saul attended Wausau East High School and made friends there that he stayed connected to his entire lifetime. Like many of his peers in the greatest generation, he answered the call to serve his country. And after graduating high school, he proudly served as the Navy Seabees during World War II with the 31st Special Naval Construction Battalion stationed in Saipan and Guam. He survived numerous air raids, including the 1944 Christmas bombing of Saipan. Saul's children remarked about how much he loved people. I guess you need to love people if you work in retail, but he really loved people. They told the story about on a trip to Puerto Rico with Corley. It wasn't the sights or the activities he would reminisce about, but rather a person that he met along the way. And if it's people that delighted him, it was her who delighted him the most. A first date at the Edgewater was followed quickly by engagement in marriage. Poetically, for their 70th anniversary, they joined the entire family for a celebration at the Edgewater. I looked it up earlier. Only 0.1% of couples celebrate their 70th anniversary. Running a local store is a big responsibility. It's not just running the store, but it's part of being a community member. You have obligations to your customers and your friends. He loved the Packers and the Badgers. He was a proud member of the Downtown Rotary Club. He was an active and devoted member of this synagogue, to which he gave so much to over the years. Together, they raised 4 kids in the house in Tacoma, just a mile from here. I'm sure many of you have memories of joining the entire family at that home for some celebration. Aging can be difficult, of course, and they didn't really want to move to Capitol Lakes, but it became an important home for them. Saul was active, spending time with some of his old friends and even cousins who lived there. Earlier, we read the words of the psalmist. Happy are those who walk the straight path, whose lives are a lesson in truth. On Sunday afternoon, we'll all hopefully gather together at Shiva again and share more stories. But as we say goodbye to Saul, we are grateful that he was in our life. As a husband and a father-in-law and a grandfather and even a great-grandfather and an uncle and a friend, the truth is there's no one like him. He was one of a kind, and his death leaves an empty place in the hearts and lives of his loved ones. But the best of Saul his care for others, his devotion to family and community, and loving nature all live on in the beautiful family he leaves behind. Of course, his loving and caring wife, who we hold in our heart today. And to Mark and Michael and Ruth and Amy and Laura and Kathy and David and Greg, Rachel, Barry, Andrew, Allison, Nick, Zachary, Carly, Joshua, Rebecca, Daniel, Stephen, Max, Jacob, Eliana, and Ariella, the next generations who he loved so deeply. Through triumph and tragedy, you committed yourselves to Saul. His legacy is your legacy. Each of you carry a spark of his spirit with you, and it is a spark that even death cannot extinguish. It's hard to give a eulogy about someone you did not know, but I get the sense that Saul wouldn't have wanted his memorial service to be too somber. He would have liked that you all came together, of course. So even though our hearts are heavy with loss, we smile as we remember Sol Blumenfeld, a man who loved life and tried to live it to his fullest. Zichrona livracha. May his memory always bring joy to those who knew and loved him. A meditation from the poet Henry Scott Holland. Death is nothing at all. Death is nothing at all. I've only slipped away into the next room. I am I and you are you. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak to me in the same easy way which you always did. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be the household word that it ever was. Let it be spoken without effect, without the shadow of a ghost on it. Life meant all that it ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. There is absolutely unbroken continuity. Why should I be out of mind? Because I am out of sight. I am just waiting for you, for an interval somewhere very near, just around the corner. All is well. Invite forward Rabbi Andrea Steinberger to offer a reflection at this moment.
I met Sol Blumenfeld many years ago. I don't exactly remember when, but the most important times for me were the many years that I visited Capitol Lakes on Friday afternoons once a month at 3 p.m. Those gatherings were some of the most meaningful, soulful moments in my life. Residents at those gatherings were living there for all sorts of reasons and maintained such dignity, intelligence, and sense of spirit. I laughed so much. I learned and experienced way more than I gave in those years. Sol and Corley were usually there at the gatherings, and that is where we formed our relationship. What I learned about them is that they had an exquisite companionship of love and happiness, and of course, admiration for their dear family. Sol was always beaming. His smile made me smile and allowed me to just melt into the feeling of what it means to be happy and content with one's life. He would smile at me. He would reach his hand out to me. Was I welcoming him? Was he welcoming me? Was I coming to comfort him, or did he comfort me? Well, both, I guess. And Corley was next to Sol, smiling at me, also holding my hand, always telling me how wonderful it was that I came. As I said, they gave me more than I could give them. Once I happened to see Sol and Corley waiting for the elevator, enjoying a meaningful conversation with another couple. The wait was a bit long, And each was either sitting on a chair by the elevator or on their walker. And they were talking about the old houses in the Nakoma neighborhood. Saul was smiling widely as he remembered the entranceway and the living room, and of course, the incredible lawn and flowers. And others were sharing their stories too. And they welcomed me into the conversation, and I just listened, and I smiled there by the elevator. And I remember exactly how I felt. I felt their nostalgia, their warmth, their memories. There was sadness, of course, in that conversation, but not anger. No one was angry with family members or angry that they ended up in this retirement center. They were just enjoying, remembering, enjoying in their mind's eye, seeing that lawn again with its happy times with family and friends. And in their enjoyment, they also seemed to be enjoying being right where they were in that very moment, content, even in a nuanced way, about where their lives had been, and for this very moment of old age and the delight of striking up a conversation of this depth in a fleeting moment of waiting for the elevator. I loved that about Saul. I loved how he made me feel in even the brief moments, and I was only a small part of his life. I love that I am friends with his children who share his sweet smile, his dry humor, and his ability to find joy in quiet moments. I love his children and their spouses. I love his grandchildren and their spouses, and I can't wait to meet this gorgeous, happy great-grandchild. I have learned how lovely it is to witness generations of family who keep coming back to each other through challenges, through times of tension, through illness, and return to health. Saul and Corley, too, have given this legacy to their children and to their families. 6 years ago, Corley and Saul approached Greg and me and asked if they could donate their piano to Hillel. It had been in their house and then in their family, but it was time to give it to the college students. That piano is still at Hillel, used by students every week. I often watch as a student sits down to play and the melody comes, the music that they had played in their own home with their own family, and the music makes them feel at home here in Madison. And I feel so lucky to have a part of the Blumenfeld legacy in our Hillel house, still used continuously every day, every week, making music for the next generation. To dear, wonderful Corley, and to all the descendants of Sol Blumenfeld, you have my heart. I am blessed to be a friend of your family. May your memories of Sol dance alongside of you at your weddings, sit alongside of you as you hold your own children, and stay with you as warm, loving memories in your challenging days, in your own nostalgia, and in your future endeavors. May healing come soon. May Sol's memory be a blessing to us all.
Now hear reflections from Saul's children. We'll begin with Mark.
Rabbi Prosnit and Cantor Nimi, thank you for this beautiful service. It's so meaningful. Rabbi Steinberger, thank you for your beautiful words. On behalf of the Blumenfeld family, I want to thank everyone for being here today to remember and honor my dad. My mom, Corley, the love of his life, and wife for 71 years, sends her love to you all. Dad was an extraordinary man. He loved people, he truly listened, and he had that rare ability to offer good common sense advice. He was a model of how to be a loving son, brother, spouse, parent, grandparent, and uncle. He taught us to love and respect one another, to care for each other, and to listen to our elders, especially our mom. Dad saw the world through people. When he and Mom traveled, we'd ask him of what he thought of the Caribbean or some other far-off place. And instead of talking about the beach or the mountains, he'd say, "Oh, Puerto Rico? Oh, it was awesome. I met the most interesting guy. He owned a cigar store, and he had this baseball card collection. It went back to the 1940s. Or after a cruise, rather than describing the destination, he'd tell stories about, oh, we met this wonderful couple. Their kid was a surgeon. He had a practice in Rhode Island. But, they have a nice Jewish community there. And maybe they had a cousin in common. Or best, it would be, and they knew this guy who had a friend who grew up in Wausau. Our dad basically had a PhD in how to live a good life. He trained for it by being generous with his love and always being there for family, especially Mom and us kids. He learned all about hard work and responsibility by working alongside his brothers and sister in his parents' Depression-era fruit and vegetable business, serving as a stevedore in World War II, managing and owning our family liquor store, and then selling office supplies and furniture. Along the way, he learned a lot about life and the importance of kindness. He was generous with his advice, offering it to anyone who sought him out as someone who had built a good life and knew what truly mattered. To him, the best part of work was when it opened the door to genuine and authentic conversations. He touched the lives of countless people that way. I remember as a teenager, one day when I was at the liquor store to sweep floors and fold boxes, I asked him, "Dad, can I take over the liquor store? When could I do that?" He looked at me and just said, "No." I was a little hurt, and I asked why. And then he said he wanted me to have something that he didn't have. He wanted something better for his kids. He wanted us to have a better life. And he supported each of us in all of our endeavors. Well, maybe not my brief go as a theater person, but he was so proud of all of our accomplishments. And when we had our own children, he didn't hold back. He became a powerful force of love and wisdom in their lives too. Dad started running in his 50s, and it became something he really loved. I once asked him how his run up the highest hill in the Arboretum went. He paused, and he looked a little wistful and said, "Well, up the hill, I had a conversation with Ma." I asked, "Really? What do you mean?" His mom, Ma, what we called her, had passed a long time ago by then. And he said, "Well, You know, the people we love don't disappear. They stay with us. I carry Ma with me all the time. She's there when I need her. Dad's love is part of all of us now. So we can all carry him with us and rely on his special advice and that poppy smile that can lift our spirits when we need it. And I think we can all smile thinking of his wonderful life, and we can all appreciate the wonderful gift of having him in our lives. So I'm going to pass things to my sister Ruth, who will speak next, but before I do, our family would like to extend its thanks to Dad's caregivers, who really became part of our family as well. We'd like to thank Dr. Ores Castellana, Dr. K, Dr. Barb Blody, a dear close family friend, the amazing Ag-Race hospice nurses, especially Mallory, and a deep, deep and appreciative thank you to his primary caregivers, Wilma, Salome, and Mark. And I would, excuse me. I would also personally like to thank my brother Michael, my sisters, Ruth and Amy, for all the work they did to take care of our dad and what they did to make it possible for him to remain at home to the very end. You're incredible, caring, loving people. I'm so proud to be your brother. Thank you so much. So thank you, everyone, for being here. Ruth, there's lots of Kleenex up here.
Last time I stood up here was 50 years ago at my bat mitzvah. It's a long time ago. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ruth. I'm the third one in line. And I'm going to try to get through my speech. If not, my husband David is going to take over. My dad was really the light of my life, my hero, role model, coach, teacher, and best friend. I looked up to him since day one. My dad was always there for me with love, support, advice, and guidance. My dad was a quiet man with a big personality, and he could make conversation with anyone. And if he talked to anyone long enough, chances were they had a connection to Wausau. My dad had so many people who befriended him quickly and seemingly with a deep connection right from the start. I believe it was because he always took great interest in their lives, and he would form an instant bond that way. And people would feel his genuine caring for them. My dad loved people, and people loved him. He loved humanity, and he saw the good in everyone. He despised hearing anything negative about anyone, and especially no gossip. If you had something bad to say, then it was best to keep it to yourself. He lived his life every day that way. Be positive, but most importantly, be good. I learned so much about the human condition from him. He was an amazing, unique man, a real mensch. I truly thought my dad was Superman because he was so incredibly strong and there was nothing he couldn't do. He could break an apple in half with his bare hands. If something broke, he could repair it somehow. and we didn't have YouTube in those days. I was blessed to have inherited his athletic genes and his love of sports. One of my fondest memories with him was going to Vilas Park on a Sunday afternoon. I would grab my bat, ball, and glove from my closet, and he would pitch to me, and I would hit that baseball all over the baseball field. In between each hit, I would go run after the ball and retrieve it and throw it back to him at the pitcher's mound, and I'd run back to the batter's box and get ready to swing for the fences once again. Over and over we did this. After what seemed like hours, he would say, "Ruth Ellen, please, let's go, I'm tired." And I would always say, "Just one more, Daddy." And of course, being the softie that my dad was, he would stay until I was too tired to run after any more balls. I moved to California after college and lived there until about 10 years ago when my mom had her first stroke. I then moved back home and lived with them in their house to take care of her. I became closer than ever with my dad, and we got to know each other as adults. This time together in our later years has been extra special and a blessing for me. My dad's whole world was his family. I will miss him greatly, sharing stories, jokes, bragging about my boys and my husband, asking advice, hearing stories about his youth, his family and friends, and watching sports together on TV. Today, especially, I am reminded of how lucky I was to have you, Dad, for as long as I did. And as difficult as it's been these last 5 months, I'm happy to know you are at peace now and forever. Your sincerity, kind soul, and love will stay with me forever. So, through my tears, I will always remember how blessed I was to have you and love you. Thank you for everything you did for everyone, and especially for loving, respecting, and caring for our mom every day of your life. You have been the greatest dad in the whole wide world. Daddy, I love you forever. Thanks. Oh, my sister Amy, the youngest, will talk now.
I am the forgotten one, it's okay. I want to thank all of you for coming. My dad would be so happy to see all of you here. I wanted to start by sharing a poem. And did you get what you wanted from this life, even so? I did. And what did you want? To call myself beloved, to feel myself beloved on the earth. My father, Sol Blumenfeld, was beloved. This poem by Raymond Carver reflects something I believe we all desire for our time on earth: to be loved and to love and be loved. My father embodied that fully. He lived his life in a way that made everyone around him feel his love, and in return, he was cherished by all who knew him. My dad was the son of immigrant parents who escaped the pogroms of Eastern Europe and found their way to this incredible country. He never lost sight of the sacrifices his parents made to create a better life for him and his siblings. They taught him the value of hard work, the importance of education, and most of all, the power of family. These were values he carried with him throughout his life, and they became the foundation of the family he loved so deeply. My dad was many things to many people: a Navy veteran who bravely served his country in World War II, a husband, a father, a grandfather, a friend, and a mentor. Along with his older brothers, Alex and Leo, he was part of the greatest generation, those who answered the call of duty during one of the most difficult times in our history. We were always so proud of him for his military service, But more than that, we were proud of the man he was. He was full of life, full of love, and full of wisdom. He had a heart that touched everyone around him and a spirit that lifted others, even in the darkest of times. His sense of humor, his kindness, and his generosity were constants in a world that could often feel uncertain. One of my most cherished memories from childhood speaks to the way my father viewed the world. When I was little, I loved reading the comic book Richie Rich. It was one of my favorites, even though I had to borrow it from my brother's collection. I would imagine living in a mansion, being driven to school in a limousine, and having all the money in the world. One evening, my dad came home from work and asked me, "Why do you like Richie Rich so much?" I told him how amazing it would be to have all that money. He smiled, sat me down, and said something that has stayed with me ever since. He said, "Our house may not be big, and our car may not be a limousine, but I have riches finer than diamonds. My greatest treasures are your mother and you children. That is worth more than anything in the world." That was my father. He saw wealth not in money, but in the love of family, in the laughter shared around the dinner table, in the pride he had in the lives of his children and grandchildren. Many of you might remember my father's beautiful speaking voice. He had a voice that could command a room, deep and lovely, calm and reassuring. His dream was to become a broadcast journalist. And after the war, he pursued that dream, enrolling at UCLA on the GI Bill. But depending on which version of the story you hear, life had other plans. My father was needed back home in Wausau, and reluctantly he dropped out of college and returned. As fate would have it, it wasn't long after that when he met my mother. So while his path may have changed, what followed was the beginning of an even greater chapter in his life. My siblings and I know just how lucky we were to have such gentle and loving souls as parents. My father never got angry. He never raised his voice, not even when we pushed him to his limits. Though, of course, being the youngest, I was never the one causing trouble. Not to call out my siblings, but there was a time my sister used my brother's model airplane paint to paint our only bathroom red. Or my brothers at various times decided to hitchhike across country. Remember, no cell phones. And at various times, other little incidents would happen, including maybe once where I rode off on the back of a boyfriend's motorcycle. His method of discipline was unique. All he needed to do was use his smooth voice, look at you with those deep blue eyes, and say, "I'm just disappointed in you." And let me tell you, that was the worst punishment of all. The thought of letting my father down was heartbreaking because he was our biggest supporter, our most loyal cheerleader. My father believed in us when we didn't always believe in ourselves. He was always there to encourage, to offer wisdom, or simply to listen. It wasn't just his voice that was beautiful. It was the way he used it, always with kindness, always with love. His impact on all of us is immeasurable. It's visible the way we all try to live our lives in his grandchildren that show kindness and love to one another in the world. He built a legacy of love and strength that will continue for generations. Today, we're not just mourning the loss of a great man, but we're also celebrating a life so full of meaning, joy, and purpose. To live nearly a century and to touch so many lives along the way is a rare and beautiful gift. And though our hearts are heavy with loss, we find comfort in knowing that my father lived a life worth celebrating, a life that left this world a better place. I want to recite one of my dad's favorite blessings, which was the Irish blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Thank you, Dad, for your service, your sacrifice, and your love. You will be deeply missed, but you will never be forgotten until we meet again. I want to now call up my son, Jacob Bogust, to read a few words, and all of the grandchildren. And don't worry, they will not all be speaking.
As the grandchildren of Sol, we knew him only as Poppy. When I hear Poppy, my mind takes me back to his kitchen on Tacoma Road. I can see the steam rising from a pot of boiling noodles while he skillfully palmed an apple, slicing it into pieces with a worn pocket knife. I also think about how even at the biggest family gatherings, Poppy always sat at the head of the table, a glass of Corbel brandy in hand, and a plate piled high with desserts. Guests would come to him to pay their respects, just like Don Corleone. One of my favorite memories was on my 21st birthday, when a group of cousins and I went to Las Vegas. Poppy didn't want to miss it and joined us as the guest of honor. By the end of the first night, we were ready to crash, but as we made our way through the casino, we spotted Poppy, nearly 92 years young, playing video poker, happily smoking a cigar well past midnight, still full of energy and life, while the rest of us could barely keep our eyes open. I guess the secret to outlasting your grandkids is Corbel and cigars. I'll always cherish those moments, the quiet and the comfortable ones in the kitchen, him sneaking us an extra Dove bar, and the unforgettable ones in the bright lights of Las Vegas. Poppy came from very modest beginnings, a true blue-collar, selfless man. He didn't know what medical school, law school, or the stress of launching a startup was like, but that never mattered. He gave us the best comfort and advice because he understood how much these things meant to us. He always made sure that we knew how much he cared, and he reminded us that we deserved to pursue anything we wanted in life. But more than anything, we are his legacy. The lessons that Poppy taught us about hard work, family, and perseverance will never die. They'll live on through us, and one day, we'll pass them down to our children, just as he passed them down to us. The last time I saw him, that's what I wanted him to know. As he squeezed my hand, both of our eyes welling with tears, I knew that he felt at peace, knowing that he didn't just build a family, he built an undying legacy of love and compassion. Poppy, we miss you dearly, and your spirit lives on through all of us.
May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. May the rain fall softly in your fields, and until we meet again, May you keep safe in the gentle, loving arms of God. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. May the rain fall softly on your fields, and until we meet again, may you keep safe in the gentle, loving arms of God.
Join with me, a time for remembrance. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember him. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember him. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember him. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember him. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember him. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we will remember him. When we have achievements that are based on his, we will remember him. So long as we live, he too shall live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. We'll chant the words of El Maleh Rachamim, which is the poem that asks that God's angels accompany Saul to a life after life. I invite you all to rise at this time.
El Maleh, Maleh Rachamim, Shochen Bameromim, Amitzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Ashechina, Im Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezoar Arakia, Mazhirim, Et Nishmat, Shlomo ben Avraham ve'ana, שהלך לעולמו. בר הרחמים יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר
Amen. Have a seat. A few brief announcements before we conclude our service. Mark, Ruth, Amy, and Michael invite everyone to gather again on Sunday afternoon for a Shiva, memorial gathering where there will be opportunities to comfort the family and offer reflections. That'll be Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. at Kathy and Michael's house, 9717 Hill Creek Drive in Verona, 9717 Hill Creek Drive in Verona. Immediately following this service, we'll be heading to Forest Hills Cemetery. For those who would like to join, feel comfortable. If you can't join, the family entirely understands and appreciates your presence here. A minor request is to allow the family to get to their cars so we can get to the cemetery pretty quickly instead of swamping them after the service. I know you want to send your condolences, and I want to offer comfort and support. Write letters, pick up the phone and make a call, send a message, reach out. It's a remarkable thing to do in this time of mourning. We'll also gather, if you'd like, to say Kaddish tonight at Beth El's Shabbat services at 7:30. We will be saying Kaddish at the very end of the ceremony, as well as the honor guard at the cemetery. A final poem before we conclude. Life is a Journey by Rabbi Alvin Fine. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or from strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until not looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high point along the way, but in having made the journey step by step, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey.
Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem, Adonai Mevorach, Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem, Adonai Mevorach. God gave and God took away. Blessed be God's name. Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem, Adonai Mevorach.
Thank you all so much. Zichrona livracha v'zecher tzadik livracha. May the memory of a good person, may the memory of a righteous man, may the memory of Sol always be for a blessing. Amen.